Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Heart to Heart. As you know, this is a IGTV series and YouTube series where we talk to today's physicians about their journeys in medicine and just getting to know them as people. So today we're very excited to have Dr. Annette Ansong. She's double board certified in both pediatrics and pediatric cardiology. She graduated from the University of Virginia and Howard University College of Medicine and went on to complete her residency in pediatrics and fellowship in pediatric cardiology at Duke University Medical Center, where she also earned a master's degree in clinical research. She's also received several honors for her research, including a Children's Miracle Network Research Grant Award, and has presented at national conferences with AHA and ACC. She now practices in private practice in Virginia, and her clinical interests include non-invasive cardiology and fetal cardiology. So Dr. Ansong, thank you so much for joining us on our Heart to Heart today.
Thank you for having me. So happy to be here with you ladies.
Excited we have a pediatric cardiologist up in here.
That's right, repping.
So, we like to talk to all of our guests about what really sparked their initial interest in medicine and then into the field of specialty. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
So, my journey is a little bit funny, but how I got into medicine was a visit to my pediatrician. And I was around 8 or 9 years old. And she asked me, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. I grew up in the 80s. And back then, all the shows on TV were all these judge shows and the People's Court and things like that. So I want to be a lawyer. She's like, oh, there are too many lawyers in the world. Why don't you be a doctor? I was like, okay. And from that point on, everything I did was geared towards medicine. I mean, I took Latin in middle school and took some health courses through high school. And so everything I did was totally geared towards medicine. And I didn't have any physicians in the family. So I sort of had to self-guide myself and navigate my way through to becoming a doctor. Now, as far as pediatric cardiology goes, it's very interesting. I had some exposure in med school at Howard, and then at Duke, there's hypoplastic left heart syndrome everywhere. All the kids and babies seem to be sick with these complex diseases. And I just remember initially my senior resident telling me as an intern, as I was taking care of a baby with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, to make sure you hear this continuous murmur all the time you round on these kids, or else it's badness. Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, sure I was as an intern taking care of these really sick kids. I was like, this is not the field for me at all whatsoever if these babies are so fragile. But then at Duke, there was a faculty member, Dr. Brenda Armstrong. She was the only African-American female in the Department of Pediatrics at Duke at that time, if I remember correctly. And she more or less took me under her wing. We were introduced to each other, and she more or less took me under her wing. So I went to clinics with her. She was the coach of her track team. I helped her with that. Just really fell under her tutelage. And in one of her clinics one day, I remember she turned to me and she's like, you're really good at this. You should do it. I was like, really? I was like, okay, well, something to think about. But it was not on my pediatric cardiology was not on my radar at all. But because of her mentorship and her words, it's what I ended up doing and am doing. So it just shows you the power of mentorship and someone really, being in your corner and cheering for you. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I think it's so interesting, so Misha and I talk about this all the time, but it's always so interesting to learn about other people's journeys through, medicine, because everybody has a really unique story. But, there's always this common ground of oh, mom and dad have been doctors, and then they informed me, or, oh, I had, and I'm not trying to minimize this in any way, but I had some kind of tragic event and that, led me. But this is, I think, the first time I've ever heard of someone being introduced to the field of medicine and wanting to become a doctor because their pediatrician told them so.
Literally. I mean, there was nothing. I was going to be a lawyer. I mean, there was, like I said, there's no one in medicine. Actually, both my parents are immigrants from Ghana.
Wow.
But that's the power of somebody believing in you, right?
Yes.
That just shows, your pediatrician, and then later your mentor. You know, they
Yes.
both saw something in you and believed in you in things that are very difficult, right? So saying
Absolutely.
this to a child or to a high school student, like, hey, I think you could go to medical school, is something that they are probably, someone who's never thought about it before is like, wow, she sees or he sees that in me. Like, wow, they must
Yes.
think highly of me. And then again, for your
Yes.
mentor to say, hey, I think you should practice complex cardiology.
Oh, Jesus.
You
And I was
know,
like,
I mean, it just goes to show that when we can't see it in ourselves, sometimes other
yes,
people
yes.
can, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Because I mean, that I feel like it's been my life story. Just things that seem too hard or too difficult that I had no business being in. But somehow, some way, I just I end up doing it, medicine, pediatric cardiology, and trying to do the best that I can.
Yeah. So, kind of as a segue about talking about, it's been a long day, I'm sorry. Talking
It's
about
Monday.
journeys through medicine. So I think it's also interesting to hear about, especially being a woman in medicine, a Black woman in medicine,
Hmm.
a Black woman in cardiology, a Black woman in pediatric cardiology. Y'all are few
In Virginia,
yeah, in Virginia, like, it's like, it's such an honor, I think, but then at the same time, we do have to discuss the fact that, you're a huge minority in this field. So I'm sure that you've had to deal with a lot of struggles and a lot of different things that you've had to navigate through, through
Yeah.
college, through medical school, through training in order to achieve your goals. So what kind of things have you had to overcome,
Yeah.
as a Black female cardiologist through your journey? And what advice would you maybe give to a young Black female, medical student that might be watching, today, or any person really, as to, if they had similar aspirations to become you one day?
Oh my God. Don't become me, be you. But you hit it on the head. I mean, being Black, being female, and then being the daughter of immigrants. I was like, bam, bam, bam. But I think for me, fortunately, I had parents that also believed in me and pushed me through. And from them, I learned perseverance, just to, stay the course, stay very focused, maybe even too focused at times. And but stay the course and just achieve and do well. I have to say, as far as being a Black woman and some of the things that come with that, I think one of the things that people can sometimes often underestimate you and what you're able to do. But as we've been saying since the beginning, you just have to believe in yourself and know what you're capable of doing. I have to say, as far as like any type of overt racism or anything like that, that's fortunately I've never had that experience in medicine, at least. In third grade, I did have a young classmate tell me, I don't like Black people. We were standing in third grade line in Ms. Zimmer's class, and she turned around and said that, and that still sticks with me. But I will say, in sixth grade, she came back and apologized to me, so she remembered. So that was my first and really last experience as far as someone telling me they didn't like me because of the color of my skin. Like in medicine, not so much where I've had that. And for the most part, people that I've been around, my colleagues have been, very, very supportive with me. But as a Black woman, sometimes you can be underestimated, and you just have to just stay the course and do what you're capable of doing. As far as advice to other young Black women, I would say just believe in yourself. Don't let other people minimize you and tell you what you can and can't do. Break barriers, break ceilings, do all of the above. You know what you're capable of. You know what you can do. Don't let people try and put you in a box. They can't put baby in a corner. So
Yeah.
you just have to believe in yourself.
Absolutely. And can you talk a little bit, because you are now co-chair, I believe, of a new committee for ABC Association for Women and Children with Cardiac Disease. So can you talk a little bit about that and,
Sure.
your opportunities and mentorship with that
Yeah,
association?
I mean, we're under the leadership of Dr. Michelle Albert. She's an adult cardiologist and new president of ABC, and she's been phenomenal. I've been a member of ABC off and on since I was a fellow, and one of the things that I saw was missing was the pediatric aspect. So I contacted Dr. Albert and said, hey, pediatrics would like to have a seat at the table too. And from that, she created the Women and Children's Committee. So I co-chair along with Dr. Rachel Bond, who's an adult cardiologist, and we've just hit the ground running. This last month, we had a webinar on congenital heart disease. And the basis behind that was to reach out to the Black community and let them know, hey, congenital heart disease is there. It's the #1 congenital defect. And also to display the Black pediatric cardiac specialists that work within pediatric cardiology. Because, one of the things with healthcare disparities is that there's not enough of us. So I think being visible and showing that there are not a lot of us, but those of us that are there, we're here and this is what we look like. So we were able to, show some of the Black pediatric cardiac specialists and then put on our presentation. And then this coming Tuesday, May 9th, 7 p.m., if you follow me on Twitter at kittyhearts.com, you can hit the registration, but we're having another webinar called Labor of Love, and it's to bring attention to maternal health. You've seen in the news recently that that Black women are disproportionately affected with maternal health complications and even death around childbirth. Mm-hmm. This webinar is going to discuss that, address that, and it's power-packed. I would encourage all to register and come because it's really going to be a lively discussion. So.
Yeah, it's so important. And Umbreen and I talk about this all the time about having that having the visual representation of what people look like in a field, in a practice, whatever it might be, really makes a difference. Yes. To patient care, to those behind us, considering opportunities. And I think even for, healthcare in general, it really matters, to have that visual of, okay, this is what my healthcare physician looks like. This is who's going to take care of me. This is who they're collaborating with. And now I feel more comfortable with XYZ. And maybe I had biases that now I can address. So I think all of this is so important. And it's something that we've talked about before. So yes, I encourage, we all encourage our audience and viewers to get involved and at least listen. Nobody's forcing anything. It's just listening and viewing and watching and being part of the discussion.
I think you hit it on the head. It's just not just showing other Black people that they're Black pediatric cardiac specialists, but showing non-Blacks that exist, having that exposure so it's not so new to people, that they get used to the idea that there are not just Black physicians, but Black specialists that are great, are phenomenal physicians and doctors and doing really good things out in the community.
And I just wanted to bring up one other thing, because I feel like within the Black community and within a lot of, minority communities, like even within the South Asian community and any type of minority community, there's always, but especially within the Black community, there's a lot of mistrust, right? Mistrust with, physicians and mistrust about, medical care. And especially in the era of COVID, it becomes really important because we have this vaccine that's out now. And, I feel like people are saying, well, there's only a certain percentage of people that are getting vaccinated, especially within the minority community. But what is it? Is it that we're not getting enough community outreach, or is it that, there's a huge, mistrust from that community, and that's why they don't want to get it? And so that's why, again, like Anisha pointed out, and that like you pointed out, like it's so important to have your voices be heard as much as possible, along with your allies, to get the good word out there, especially when it comes to vaccinations and, maternal health and these other things.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it again on the head. It's a combination of both. It's one, access to the vaccine, and then also the mistrust, and that, goes way back in history with some of the deeds and experiments that were done against Black people. And folks remember that. And that in combination with what people may have personally experienced with their physicians, I think is what's hindering the Black community from getting vaccinated. But, hopefully that will change with time. One of the things I did when I got my vaccine was I took a picture and posted it all over social media, so that folks would see that, hey, I'm Black, I'm female, but I trust the healthcare system enough to know that they're doing me justice and I'm doing a good thing in combating this disease, and I got my shot. So hopefully as more people do that and talk about their experiences with getting the vaccine, that it'll allay fears and more people of color will go out and get the vaccine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I think that also plays into the base that we understand the knowledge behind the vaccine, right? And you yourself have been involved in clinical research that you've gotten grant awards for, you've presented at AHA and ACC, you have a master's in clinical research. And so, what advice would you have to students and trainees who want to do that, who want to get more involved, who want to be that advocate in the scientific research aspect of things? How would you help guide them?
I say just do it. I'm in private practice, so I haven't done as much of the clinical research as I wanted to, but it hasn't stopped me from getting involved in doing other things. Trust me, I have my hands full. So say for students, residents and such, if that's something that you want to do, find someone who's doing that. Find a mentor. And they're all over the place. Folks are going to be busy regardless, but you have to be persistent and hunt folks down. Don't be scared that you're bugging me. I mean, you may be bugging, but for you want to be persistent in getting what you need. So that would be my biggest advice. And if one door closes shut, try someone else. There's more than enough researchers out there for residents and students to hang on, to tag along with, to connect with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, Amisha and I talk about this all the time. And even with the other guests, that we've had on, is that, everybody's journey is so different. And that's why we display it on this platform, because we want people to see that, the end goal, that they see Annette Ansong and they see that she's, star researcher, she's private practice physician, she's a pediatric cardiologist, she's involved in all these associations, but they don't see the steps behind all of those titles and what it took for you to get to where you are. And that maybe you've had several doors that closed for you, but because those doors closed, these other opportunities came. So it's such a big message to say, hey, it's okay. It's okay if this door closes. It might feel like the end of the world and, you're devastated, but you never know what's behind, another door. So just to never, especially if it's something you're passionate about. And I think all three of us can really relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, like behind the, she looks great, she's doing this. It's work, put in the work and the time. I have two small kids and luckily a husband who's like just awesome. So when I'm working on some of my extracurricular activity or trying to catch up on charts, it's my husband who's sort of holding down the fort, watching the two kids, so I can do what I do. So it's definitely a team effort, and sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice. So you definitely need to have your people around you to help support you so that you can accomplish your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for our last question for you, so, we've already delved into this topic a little bit, and, obviously, that diversity and inclusion has been a huge topic of discussion, not only within the field of medicine, but really specifically within cardiology, whether it's adult cardiology, pediatric cardiology, and any other type of subspecialty within our fields. So what changes do you think we need to make moving forward in order to further diversify the field with people of color, as well as including more women within cardiology?
Yeah, I think the big thing, well, not big thing, so it's multifaceted as to making the field diverse, but I think one of the things we need to do is the pipeline, increasing the pipeline, starting young, starting early, going to the elementary schools, heck, even the preschools. I went to my daughter's preschool and talked about being a doctor, but sort of getting into people's mind that, hey, medicine is a field that you can think about pursuing. And I think the other thing I would say is, we don't necessarily have to put being a doctor. There's so many different aspects and things in medicine that people can get into. We're not saying, hey, everybody needs to be a doctor because we're so great. No, there's so many other things within cardiology, within medicine, that people can become involved with. So, but I think that the key is getting in there early, so that, just like my pediatrician told me, hey, be a doctor. And from that point on, at 8, 9 years old, that's how I directed my path. And then once these kids are in the pipeline, sort of setting up a system that makes them able to succeed. Because it's one thing to be in the pipeline, get into the school, but you want folks to succeed. You don't want them to drop out of school or residency or whatever, because they don't have that support, that mentorship, and then later on that sponsorship. So I think that's the key, and we have to be intentional too. If we see that there's an issue, there's this gap, then we have to be intentional with our efforts and trying to recruit more minorities into medicine and into cardiology.
Couldn't agree with you more on all of that. I think, and your story is just highlighting that early impressions really do count.
Yes,
right?
They do. Yes. And then, and you can't be what you don't see. So for me, it was Dr. Armstrong. Peds cardiology was not on the radar, like I said, but seeing her, in fact, the pediatric cardiologists at the time at where I trained were mostly white men, smart white men who all became my great mentors. So I was like, oh, I'm out of my league with this. But then I see her, and I'm like, okay, it's possible. There's the possibility that this is something I can pursue. So visibility, so I said starting early. The other thing too for diversity is visibility. Those of us who are, of color, using social media, whatever it takes to be visible. I'm here, and this is how I got here. So, sort of stepping out of your comfort zone so that you can bring others in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, this platform that Amisha and I created is for that very purpose, right? So that people can say, wow, I see a woman, I see a woman of color, I see a Black woman, I see a, Hispanic woman, and I see, an Asian woman, I see whatever kind of woman or man, he for she too.
Right, that's right. That's right.
Saying that person looks like me, or, that person has a similar journey like me. So if they can do it, I can do it too. And as simple as that message is, like, I don't think we understand sometimes how much of an impact that can have, that literally, like, you can see someone that looks like you, and maybe you were discouraged your whole entire life, but then you see that person that looks like you, that they're doing it, and then that just triggers something in you that you can do it too, so things like this, I feel like, do matter. And again, that's why Amisha and I were like, what better way than to use, this platform to highlight some great people, and, not only humanize physicians, but show that, really anybody is capable of anything.
That's right. And you just have to just put it out there. And so this is a great thing that you all are doing. So I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Of course. So, we're so happy that we have had you on today. I feel like we touched on a lot of different topics, important topics. And then we talked about how wonderful you were. And that was the best thing of all. So if there's any, last piece of advice that you'd like to give our audience, what would you want to say?
It's been a tough year for everybody, myself included. I've lost family members to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we just have to be hopeful and be strong and know that this too shall pass, and lean on each other, trust each other. So be hopeful.
And get vaccinated.
Yes, Kurt. Vaccinated. That's right. That's right. To be hopeful, we need the vaccine. Yes. Right.
So we could all wear our fun lipsticks and makeup again, and we don't.
That's right.
because for
That's
us,
right.
that's important.
That's
Anyhow,
right.
we had the best time with you. You're so fun to talk to. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I know that you're a busy mom, busy physician, busy wife, and thank you again for taking out the time. And thank you to our audience for being with us today. And we hope to see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.